Everybody, thanks for checking out the Chris Gethard Show podcast. It's really cool that you're checking this out.
We're about to do, I think, the dumbest show we've done in years.
His life would be trashed!
Hey, you better believe I'm trashed.
We are scrappy trash people.
What's the point of this show? I just turned it on.
We've always been with this show.
We've always been trash people. We will always be trash people.
It's true.
This doesn't feel real.
Live from my grandmother's basement, we offer a low-calorie comedy alternative for people on a basic cable diet. I'm Emily Pineapple.
I'm Judge Robin.
I'm Forrest, the keeper of the cannon.
And we are Trash People, the podcast where we recap and review public access episodes of The Chris Gethard Show so you don't have to. Today we are discussing episode 7, the Hands on a Studio Audience Member episode, aired on August 3rd, 2011. The musical guest was Modern Rivals, and the panel was Chris Gethard, Bethany Hall, The Human Fish, Don Finelli, Random Gene, and comedian Joe Mandy. And before we get started, I have a question for y'all, my wonderful co-hosts.
And let us know. We want to hear what's the closest you've ever come to dying.
I let Chris ask it for me.
I haven't really ever gotten close to dying because I've lived a really sheltered life. But the most I've ever felt like I was going to die was, and you guys know this already, I went to India, had a great time, saw the Taj Mahal, was living large, ate the best meal of my life, and it gave me massive amounts of food poisoning. And I was stuck in this hotel in the middle of nowhere that someone else had booked for me. I'm pretty sure I was literally the only one staying in there. I ran out of water, so I went to go find some water. There was no one at the front desk. There was just a dude asleep on the couch.
Oh, no.
And I asked him for water, and he goes in the back and comes out with an open bottle of water. And I'm like, oh, is this filtered water or normal water? He goes, oh, no, it's water from filter. I'm like, is it filtered water? He's like, yeah, from filter water from tap. I'm like, at that point, I was so dehydrated that I was like, you know what? I'm gonna roll the dice, and I rolled the dice, and I was alternating shitting and pooping all night, or shitting and vomiting.
Oh no!
Yep.
And then woke up the next morning to my tour guide being like, "All right, ready to go see the town?" And me being like, "No, take me home."
I think the closest I ever came to dying was climbing something. There's two different times that I'm like, oh, it could be one of those. And both of them were when I was just climbing a random cliff or mountain somewhere without any of the sort of proper equipment to do so. I was climbing, we were in Malibu State Park, just climbing cliffs, and I reached up and grabbed a hold, and we're already too far up. And it just came away. It just crumbled in my hands, and then there was just a bunch of red ants there.
Ooh.
Oh no.
It was okay. I had a panic attack, and the awesome guy I was with just talked me down. He just talked me right back down that cliff. Forrest.
So I did a hot wing competition in San Jose, and this was a hot wing place that was on Man vs. Food for having incredibly spicy wings. And it was if you could eat 50 or 100 wings or something over the course of an hour, you won a t-shirt or whatever. I ate 5 and then stopped for 5 hours and couldn't eat anything at all. Everything burned.
Oof.
Every pore burned. Everything. And it was so bad that I, someone who is lactose intolerant, ran out of the restaurant into the corner store, into the back, opened a quart of milk, chugged the quart of milk, and then paid for the quart of milk. And then went back to the restaurant and was still just uncomfortable the whole
Forrest,
time.
I've never heard a story of you being ratchet.
I also almost went blind on the drive home when,
Oh,
so despite
did you
the
touch
fact
your
that
eyes?
Yeah, I did. Despite having washed my
Oh.
hands multiple times and really scrubbed it, my eyes were just on fire for the drive back to Santa Cruz.
Forrest, did you ask the guy in the convenience store next door how often people ran into his store and chugged milk from the restaurant next door?
No, but he was not surprised, and I wasn't even the only one doing it of my group.
Yeah, Chris also had food poisoning. He said that he hallucinated an entire conversation. And then my favorite story of dying, of course, is Robin, your favorite person, Don Finelli.
Oh yeah, Don. Apparently, he was in one of those floaties and managed to flip himself up, or like a tube, right? And he managed to
like
flip
an inner
himself
tube.
upside down. So his feet were sticking up, and he was too buff, so he couldn't flip himself back around because he's all upper body. So he ended up having to do a push up off the ground of the pool to flip himself back upwards.
That was the sound he made in the inner tube.
I was like, ha ha ha. I flipped it over, and I couldn't flip back over.
Yeah.
And that's why I try not to get too buff.
We get a human fish question right off the bat. Werther's Originals versus Homemade Lemonade. Werther's wins.
Okay, so I'm gonna interrupt for a second so we can
the first one.
get into. I'm introducing a new segment today on this episode that I have without asking my coworkers here. I have not told them that I've named it, but I've named it Fishy Explanations. And in this segment, I will be throwing to my co-podcaster Emily here to explain really in depth what this question means.
It's a psychological ploy.
Yeah. It is. So, Emily, can you please really go into detail? Let us know what this one's about.
Werther's Originals versus Homemade Lemonade. And this is, of course, after the human fish has been confronted with the idea of mortality. He's just heard about how, Don almost died, Chris almost died. He's sort of putting together more about how humans, relate to themselves and to time. And he picks Werther's. He picks Werther's because as we sort of face down our mortality, like what's better, like reminiscing about the times that we had but that are lost. Like lemonade. Lemonade doesn't last. You have to drink it, especially if it's homemade lemonade. It's fresh lemons. It's going to go bad pretty quickly. You have to enjoy it then and remember how great it was. Werther's Originals, that's a hard fucking candy that will survive through the nuclear apocalypse. It's something that lasts. It's something that stays behind. Even when you eat one, the wrapper stays behind. And you have to deal with that. And even when you throw away the wrapper, that wrapper sits in a fucking landfill like for 20,000 years. This is something that lasts. The human fish is looking at the question of mortality. And in the face of that, he chooses something that feels more eternal.
Very good. Very nice.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that I was able to give us all a better picture into the mind of the human fish.
I was definitely stroking my beard as you made all of these very erudite points.
I definitely thought you were going to say you were stroking something else.
No.
It was like, Forrest, what the fuck?
No. No. I was in the world of ideas. No.
Well, that's excellent, because you know who isn't in the world of ideas? The very real individual who calls in, the first caller in the show. Forrest, keeper of the cannon, owner of a pretty bomb Vacation Jason costume. Oh, why don't you tell us about Vacation Jason's first call on the Chris Gethard Show?
I was so excited as soon as I heard the shoop-de-boop-de.
Shoop-de-boop-de, shoop-de-boop.
So I think it seems like he'd been on the stage show, but he's immediately perfectly antagonistic to Chris. Chris already hates him, which that's the lifeblood of this whole relationship, so I love it. And Vacation Jason says mortality is dope. And he also describes the 2 times he came closest to dying.
I suffer from a condition called reverse scurvy. Too much citrus to the brain, kid.
And then the other time.
One time I was hosting a cruise ship. I was the entertainment coordinator, and then a bunch of pirates came on board while I was trying to do island karaoke, and then I strangled one of them to death, and I stabbed the other one to death. And then that was about it.
I mean, I have to say, I didn't know I could like Vacation Jason more, but knowing that he's into karaoke and fighting pirates, like that makes me. I think I'm a Vacation Jason fan in a whole new way now.
Yeah, well, I'm on a raft, so I don't care.
On YouTube, you can see video of the first time Chris sees Vacation Jason. I think it's the first time. It's called Vacation Jason Begins, and he is not pleased.
Our caller number 2 was pretty great. Judge Robin, I feel like this is one that you're going to want to talk about.
Yeah. So he calls in asking the human fish what's on his mind. Human fish says ukuleles versus anyone who plays the ukulele, to which the human fish responds, ukuleles, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
We won't go into detail about this one.
We don't need to.
So then he said that he really likes the show and that he, every Wednesday, he'll watch it while getting head.
Watching Chris Gethard will get some head. Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
What did you think about the call? He really didn't have anywhere to go with it.
I just liked how excited Chris got about that someone's getting head on his show.
Can we get a close-up on the human fish so this guy can watch that while he is filleted?
And he was just like, oh, I came. It's like, thanks.
I'm starting to think he really wasn't getting head.
What?
Third caller was Christy, who would later try to be Random Christy. Once you try out to be a random, they just call you Random that name forever, I've noticed.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this is the same Christy.
Yeah, she had a pretty well, here's sort of a summary of the call.
Wait, literally, I tried to call you guys 2 weeks in a row, and it got hung up on every single time, so I'm really happy I got on your show tonight.
That's awesome. I wish we had more to talk about.
Welcome to the show, Christy. I probably wouldn't have done any better. Then the game begins. It is the same game as, have you heard of this Hands on a Hard Body, where people put their hands on a car? The person who takes their hand off the car last, wins. And there was a sister episode where that happened.
That's also where I learned what that is.
Oh!
Yeah.
So in this version of the game, they choose an audience member volunteers, and everyone has to put their hands on the audience member. Last person to take their hand off wins $1. And if you do take your hand off, you have to sing karaoke, iPod karaoke. You put headphones in so no one else can hear the song, but you are singing. And it's very awkward. And yeah.
Connor's got a big announcement.
Connor Ratliff back on the show, here to tell us some stuff.
Connor is on the show to announce his intention to run for the president of the United States of America.
What does it take to become president? Leadership? Passion? Intelligence? Or maybe it's a lot simpler than that.
And it is a lot simpler than that.
Our founding fathers put one number in the Constitution, 35. That's how old I am.
Exactly. And up until that point, and really until today, the youngest president in U.S. history was 42. But Connor is 35, which is the age the founders intended.
He's definitely the kind of guy you could just have a beer with.
I also loved the balloon drop.
Oh, yeah, that was great. They had a balloon drop, and all the balloons dropped, and then some of the audience members kept up the balloon thing happening, which was great. Yeah, but during that, Jean took her hand off Flashing Glasses Man, and, yeah, sings Beautiful Day by U2. And Chris laments that this was a terrible idea, and that he finds it really awkward. Don Finelli just gives a thumbs up in the background. Don Finelli seems to always know when there's a camera actually on him.
It's because he's staring at his own body the entire time.
Our next caller was Alyssa. They ask Alyssa, what is it like being 15 in the year 2011?
It's going, I don't know. 15,
Was that what 15 was like for you? Because that was definitely what 15 was like for me.
Yeah, that was 15 for me.
Yeah, more or less.
You had kissed a girl, hadn't you, by 15,
yeah.
Robin?
Yeah, I was,
It's so much puss.
You had, yeah. Chris asks Joe Mandy what he was like at 15, which he thought was annoying and 4 feet tall and overcompensating. That made me think of you, Robin.
Yeah, that one's more of me at 15.
What was great was, she thinks that she's super annoying. And Dawn said that her self-loathing was actually the most annoying part of her. So Chris invites everyone to raise their hands if they hate themselves, because
I notoriously hate myself.
So we get, everyone raising their hands, and then this was your favorite moment of the show, Forrest Heber the Cannon?
Yeah, because you can hear that Bethany is the one person on the panel who does not hate herself.
No, I like
The human fish. We just learned the human fish hates himself.
You can hear her just, no, I like, and then just being totally cut off by Chris. Then next we had a pretty fun moment. Noah Foreman, who is, what is his role?
He was one of the head writers and was later portrayed by Duke Ponzetti.
So Noah comes out and sprays Dawn in the face with Dust Destroyer. Do you think he just found it in the studio?
Probably.
Definitely.
They're really pissed off because it's like fucking chemicals. So Gene puts perspective on the situation.
But it could have been worse. You could have had a fire extinguisher in your face.
Random Gene, that's your great now. Gene, you're right, Gene. You had a fire extinguisher in my face. Great point, Random Gene. Hey, keep playing this game.
I really want an inspirational quote like you see on Facebook that's just, hey, you could have had a fire extinguisher in the face.
Oh, that's a good one. We then get our musical guest Modern Rivals play, and Forrest, you had a comment about their style that I could not relate to because I was not paying attention whatsoever to popular music in 2011.
Yeah, I thought their sound was really, in a lot of ways, the epitome of 2011, which, to clarify, I mean as a compliment because that was when I was at my peak cultural cachet.
Did you like the band, Robin?
I think I skipped it.
Something strange here is
No, I did not.
You're not allowed to skip it. I'm going to play the whole thing.
Something strange here is going on.
It's pretty nice. Y'all should look them up.
They had like a Noah and the Whale flavor. I really appreciated it.
No, they were good. It's just not my cup of tea.
It was great because one of the guys in a black shirt at the end of the row, they kept cutting to him because he kept looking at the audience members dancing and like laughing. Like he was so delighted by like Banana Man doing things. That was great. Our next call was a pretty intense one.
This call really was intense. So he almost ran himself over with his car.
That's how Chekhov died. That's how the new Chekhov died.
Anton Yelchin. Yeah.
Gosh, so sad.
I mean, almost exactly this, where the car was put into reverse. They got out to do something with their car, and then it flew backwards. And in this case, only almost pinned Mike under the wheel because the person in the passenger seat was luckily paying attention and pulled the handbrake. And
insane.
that's the only reason Mike was still with us to make this call.
Our next caller after that was someone who I honestly don't find the joke interesting.
I'm Marlon Brando. I just want to talk about my...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the Marlon Brando was fat joke, I think, is sort of overplayed at this point.
Oh, that was the joke?
Yeah, that's why it was dinner rolls.
Oh.
It's because in his late career, Marlon Brando gained like a lot of weight.
Oh, that's mean. I saw him in a streetcar named Desire, and my English teacher could not like stop lusting over him.
Fair
it was
enough.
hilarious. He made us rewatch the scene where he lights a match on the side of his shoe like 12 times. Like, how is this English class? And then we get the lone cornmeal machine. It was exciting to get a clip from this one because I was able to get a very short clip that summed up the entire video.
As our planet becomes warmer, our cities will become a habitat for enormous monsters. That's right, monsters.
What did you think about this one, Judge Robin?
Yeah, we know what I thought about this one. It was fine. It didn't show me, like, mutilated testicles.
Well, you're going to have a surgery on your testicles.
You're going to have it, Robin.
I'm going to cut open your scrotum.
Oh!
How about that?
That sound effect is, that sound bit is really, really triggering for me.
I love it.
The caller after that was Walter, which is always nice to hear from him But the best part about this call is that, like, basically as it's answered, Chris just physically pushes Don Finelli's hand off of the audience member.
Like, I remember when I watched it, I was just like, did Chris really just do that? Because it's so just no holds barred. He just shoves his hand off.
Hey, man, he needs that dollar.
It's his dollar.
Yeah, he needs to keep it.
Oh, yeah.
He's invested in winning.
It's a difference between, like, walking or taking the subway home.
I have the only karaoke that I'm gonna have is Don Finelli's because he fucking owns it. He just wins.
Party and I'll cry if I want to, cry if I want to, cry if I want to. You would cry too if it happened to you.
That's like one flat note, and he was going off of like what he was harmonizing in that one part, and that was still on key. Like, damn, Don. I feel like a lot of rewatching this show is just thinking about like how talented Don Finelli is. I feel like that's been a lot of our podcast.
Hey, not all of it. We've also commented about how good he looks too.
Then we get a really fun story from Joe Mandy. Robin, as you have sort of channeled his 15-year-old self, do you want to share this story with us?
Yeah, so apparently Joe Mandy, when he was 8, put tiger balm on his balls. And I don't know if you know this, Emily, but this is like rule number 101 of being a guy. Like, you don't put like Gold Bond, any of that like icy hot. You never put that shit on your balls.
Do you think that it feels the same if one were to put that on a vagina?
Maybe like inside a vagina, maybe, but like on top of it, like.
Yeah, like as a vagina haver, I'm not sure that it would. Well,
what happened to your balls? They ached.
I just picture Joe Mandy looking off into the middle distance as he says they ached, just haunted by that moment for the rest of that hour or two, probably for the rest of his life.
Chris loses the hard body. He has to do karaoke, and then, but who calls in?
Hey, Chris, it's the real Marlon Brando. I'm really sorry.
So, way to save a fat joke, I guess.
Well, and I love that it just turned into him talking about the 70s Knicks as if they were current.
Yeah, that was like a really esoteric and boring part of the show for me. Like, I don't even know now baseball.
Well, the Knicks play basketball.
Fuck me. That's when Human Fish loses iPod karaoke, and as his official interpreter, I guess now, I would like to present to you his karaoke.
Is the sound of a seal. Oh, what are we doing with our lives?
The next interesting call was a Jeff Falzone who knows Connor Ratliff. He lets Connor tell the story, and I'm going to let you, Forrest, tell this story, but...
You tell the story. I saved your life. Just don't leave that part out.
Yeah, don't leave that part out, Forrest. Jeff saved his life. Now tell us the story.
I won't leave that part out. So Connor was having a sandwich in the Jefferson City sub shop in Jefferson City, Missouri, and he was choking on it and was going to die.
He was choking on the sub shop?
Yes, he was choking on the entire sub shop. No, he was choking on the sandwich served by that fine establishment. And then Jeff Falzone swooped in and saved America's next president.
He gave me the Heimlich maneuver, but I think the other people in the restaurant thought we were being romantic.
It just doesn't look romantic to me, but okay.
This call is also significant because at this point in the history of TCGS, it was the call placed from furthest away from New York City.
The next two calls I'm going to group together for reasons that will become apparent.
My name is Mary Todd Lincoln, and I want to tell you about my near-death experience.
Okay, what was your near-death experience, Mary Todd Lincoln?
I was sitting next to my husband, President Abraham.
Mary Todd Lincoln, have a great night.
And then, so, of course, we don't want the same joke. We've already had Marlon Brando, the real Marlon Brando, now Mary Todd Lincoln. But,
my name is Martin. I want to talk about my near-death experience.
Okay, so Martin, what's the closest you ever came to death?
My name is Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King, have a great night. Have a great night.
That was crafty.
I wish he had got into his thing a little bit before saying he was Martin Luther King. He could have strung them along for a lot longer.
Oh yeah. And then we had our sort of final moment of this episode is one that I think is one that smacks of prophecy. Horatio Sands asked on Twitter if the guy in the banana suit in the audience was willing to be electrocuted. But who might that be, Forest Keeper of the Canon? Tell us this canon story.
That would be Keith Haskell, the Geth Head famous banana man, who would go on to marry Bethany, and they have a kid together. He worked on the show throughout the public access run into the cable run. Yeah.
But he was actually, Chris told a story about him in Lose Well, how he was literally just a fan, but he was also like a really accomplished editor. So he just like kept coming to this show and then eventually was like, hey, I want to fix your show.
Yeah. He also is responsible for all the Spirit of Gethard specials.
Banana, you just showed up tonight dressed as a banana and have been accused of rape and now are going to be electrocuted. It's the best day of my life.
It's the best day of his life because he met Bethany and they fell in love.
Also, the accusation was Chris misinterpreting what a caller was saying.
Yeah. So he wasn't accused of rape. He was actually someone wanted to have sex with him. That wasn't Bethany. Yeah, and so our show ends with Joe Mandy gets tasepped and then closes out the show by reciting a rap that he wrote in college. Do y'all have like a poem or a rap that is especially embarrassing that you will not share with us today, but that you will tell us about, Judge Robin?
Yeah, I got a bunch.
Yeah, a bunch?
They were like song things. They were like supposed to be dumb though.
I wrote a rap about the Lord of the Rings in 6th grade. Are you all surprised?
No.
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 Hey, Emily, if Marky Mark could do it, so could we.
I wrote a poem with the untapped idea that advertisers are phonies. No one's ever done it before. I was a real trailblazer.
Damn, prescient. So now that we've finished talking about the Chris Gethard Show episode we've watched, it comes to our personal segments of our show. We're going to start out with mine, MVNPC, my favorite audience member.
I love you!
My favorite audience member today was Banana Man. Also, there's a guy in a cowboy outfit who like specifically helped with the balloon project of Connor's. He kept like throwing the balloons so that it would be more spectacular. So kudos to him. It's now time for that canonical corner of Chris's canon over there where canon happens.
That's all you need to know.
We talked about a lot of the connections already throughout the course of the episode, but one more is Joe Mandy. He, much like Chris Gethard, also appeared in some of the last seasons of Parks and Rec. He was on 7 episodes as Morris Lurpus, who is a Pawnee resident, and he also wrote for the show. But I just love the name Morris Lurpus.
Was he featured in any arcs, or was he just, a fill-in because he was a writer?
I think it was more of the fill-in roles where he would interject to remind people that the internet can basically do anything.
We also learned my favorite canon that happened today is
Oh, Vacation Jason, you're the funniest, best part of the Chris Gethard Show.
I'm so surprised that you didn't mention him.
What?
Keeper of the Canon. He's your favorite person.
He is my favorite. But I thought didn't I say that earlier?
Yeah.
I thought I already covered my eternal love for Vacation Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought that you would reiterate it,
I wish we had more to talk about.
Yeah.
I do have a Vacation Jason Voorhees costume. And Chris did acknowledge that he hated what I was wearing when I went to one of his book signings.
That means we've come to our final segment for the pod. It is time for Judge Robin's scorecard. All rise for the Honorable Judge Robin.
And be seated. All right, I'm Judge Robin, and every week at the end of the podcast, I will be giving everyone the scores they deserved in this episode. All right, Don Finelli had 1 point because 18 is the perfect age to lie about your age. Oh, that was in reference to
Random Christie.
They asked how old she was. He said 18. He's like, that would be the age I'd lie about too. Bethany got 1 point for, and I quote, way to be 18 and never stab anyone.
Also from the Random Christie call.
Yeah. Joe Mandy got 2. 1 because he grew up short and overcompensated for it, which I took to heart very dearly. And 1 for putting Tiger Balm on his balls, because ouch.
It was Bengay, but they're the same thing, basically.
Yeah, putting stuff that he shouldn't be on his balls. That's worth at least a point in my book. Chris got 2 points this episode. 1 for raise your hand if you hate yourself.
I notoriously hate myself.
Yeah. And the other one for was another call we cut. We didn't talk about. But the quote is, "You're 15. Okay, that's a fine age to get gangbanged."
Holy shit!
Which we're not going to give context to. Watch the episode.
That one, yeah.
And of course, in first place was everyone who called into this episode to talk about getting a blowjob.
Chris Gethard will get some head. Fuck yeah.
Which was, I think, 1, maybe 2 people.
Yeah, someone else, their joke was like, I was getting roadhead and then we got in an accident, and they didn't have any jokes after that, so Chris just kind of hung up on them, but
Great job finding a way to brag about getting roadhead on TV.
Yeah.
A lot of people calling in about getting head. I respect that. They got first place.
Everyone getting filleted out here in
And you know what? If you're getting filleted while listening to this episode, you got first place too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. If you got filleted while listening to this episode of our podcast, please email us. That's the best thing ever, and you can remain anonymous. Like, we won't reveal your identity, but, like, please tell us.
I don't think anyone's ever gotten off while listening to my voice.
So, Judge Robin, if you've given out all your points, what's your final judgment on this episode? Should someone watch this episode?
I thought the game was kind of weak. The calls were good, but the game was kind of weak. It's not one of the stronger episodes.
Yeah, but it has Wooden Pussy, which famously begins. Yep, we all remember Wooden Pussy from Joe Mandy's shower. Forrest, would you recommend this episode to be watched?
I like it. I mean, it's definitely not a must see, I don't think. I mean, Joe Mandy's funny. Like, I think there's strengths to the episode, but I don't think it's a must watch if you're trying to sort of split out the essential episodes.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some like cool show history things that happen in this episode. Like, we get Vacation Jason, we get Connor's, running for president. But yeah, beyond that, there are definitely stronger ones.
Yeah, I mean, those historic firsts are, I think, a good reason to watch it. But if you know the general...
If you're a super fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just re-listen to this episode a few times, like while you're on the bus or something, and make our downloads look really good. Because I don't think anyone's listening.
I would even settle for just play it while you're not home. On loop all day.
For your cat.
Yeah, let your cat enjoy our voices.
All right. Thank you all so much for listening to us today. I'm glad we were able to sort of provide this service. I guess this is one of the first episodes where we're like, yeah, you shouldn't watch it, but like, we're glad we did to share things with you. Wow, the podcast works. I don't know. Let us know. I'm currently playing us out to Muscle Man by Locus Pocus. You can check them out at locuspocus.bandcamp.com, on their Facebook, facebook.com/locuspocusSF, or locuspocusmusic.com. We are going to be gone for most of April. So if you are looking forward to our bi-weekly releases of this podcast, there will not be one for about a month. We will be on hiatus, but then we'll be coming back with more Gethard for everyone. Ooh.
Oh yeah, this muscle man who came here to town to eat your friends. Oh yes, he did. He walks like he's got bricks under his feet. Oh, he's huge. Yeah, he's so fucking big. Yeah, walks into my party about 45 minutes too late. He got a kid on his arm, cool jacket dude. He's got a young date, and he's fashionably late. Yeah, guess he's so obscene. And he leans just a bit too far to the right. Cheating on his wife. Oh God, he's tall. Yes, he tilts his head to the side. To the side. Oh yeah, this muscle man. No, we came here to town to drink your blood. Oh yes, he did. He's 35, been back from home, spent the pub. Oh yeah, why? Oh. So obscene, and he leans just a bit too far to the right. Oh, and he is probably cheating on his wife. Oh no, he's tall, and has to tilt to the side. This side.
Yeah, well, I'm on a rat, so I don't care.